Well, hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and today I'm standing over here at the Wilton number 4 vise. About 3 months ago, I did a video on restoring this vise. If you've not seen that, appreciate it if you go over and take a look at it. Then, following that video, I did a 2-part series on making a pedestal for the vise. The vise and the pedestal together weighs a little over almost 230 pounds, about 227 pounds. And I've been extremely pleased with it so far. Even though it's on a pedestal and it weighs that much, it means that the vise is not taking up a lot of space or not taking up any space on the workbench. It's also somewhat portable, even though it does weigh 227 pounds or so. I can move it with a wheel truck around in the shop. Still hadn't decided on its final destination yet, but said that just to say that I am pleased with it, except for one thing. Being on a pedestal and having the top of the pedestal, the base, where the base of the vise sets on, having it about the same size as the vise base, means I don't have anywhere to put tools. Get over here doing a project on the vise, you need hammers, chisels, punches, drill, whatever. You need, a lot of times you'll need other tools. And being on a pedestal, there's not a workbench there to lay your tools on. So it means I'm laying it over here on some other tool, which is not convenient at all. So what I'm going to do in this video is make a table, an 8-inch by 8-inch tool tray, if you will. It'll be mounted to this pedestal, and it will be such that it can swing over to this side. It can swing around to this side, whatever the work dictates. I'm left-handed. The whole world is right-handed. But I can swing this to either side, whatever, again, the job dictates. And if the work in the vise happens to be hanging down and the work tray or the tool tray is in the way, it can swing around here to the back and be completely out of the way. So stick with me, even if you don't follow what I'm doing along with each one of them, or see how it's going to come together. Stick with me until the end and you'll see. I'll show it to you mounted on the vise pedestal itself. The arm for our tool tray will be made up from this 1-inch by 1/2-inch channel. There'll be 2 pieces of it welded together, like such. This is about 11 inches long now, these pieces. On the end of that, once these are put together and welded, on the end, each end will be a piece of 1-inch stock, and I will mill out in this one using a 1-inch end mill. I'll mill out a slot for that to fit into, and then weld that onto the end of each or onto each end. There will be a one of these at each end of the arm, making the overall length about 12 and a half inches, something to that effect. On the pedestal that's under the vise right now, there'll be a short piece of this, about 3.5 inches long. And onto that, I will mount a piece of stock such as this. This is about 1 3/4 inches, 1.5 inches thick. But it will be mounted onto that. This will be screwed on, 2 screw holes, and this will be screwed onto the pedestal in a vertical position. This will be mounted onto it, and then there'll be a couple blind holes drilled in here and in here that this will pivot on. Okay, I'm over here at the lathe now, and what I'm going to do is take one of the pieces that we're going to use. This will likely be the one that's going to be on the mount on the pedestal itself. So we'll set up and drill that one. We're only going to go about 1.25 inches deep. As I said, I'm going to make these a blind hole. The pin that I'll be using is 3/4 inch drill rod. This is some W1, I believe it's called. But I'm going to drill these out with a 23/64 and then ream them with a 3/8, with a 3/8 minus a thousandths. And with a little bit of run out that's in my chuck here, that should still give a good rotating fit. And we want to go in about 1.25 inches in this. Now that I've got it drilled out, I'm taking a 3/8 inch reamer. It's actually the 3/8 minus a thousandths reamer, and just going to round that hole out. Need to clean some chips out of there, but that'll be a good snug fit now for the rotation. I'm going to do the same thing for the pivot pieces that go on the end of the rod, both of them, and also for the piece that will go under the table. All right, I've got the holes drilled now. 3/8 inch drill rod. Again, this will be mounted to a short piece of this channel and be mounted on the pedestal, and then this will be able to pivot. This setup is for the pedestal end. This will be used under the table itself. Basically mounted like this. This will be on the pedestal end. This will be on the table end with the table secured down to this and be able to turn. And I got a very good fit. If you can hear it. So I've got a good fit with the rod, and being blind holes, I don't have to worry about trying to Loctite them in to one side or the other. Should have some good pivot pieces here. So the next thing I'm going to do again is cut a short piece of this and be over at the mill to drill a couple holes in it and get it prepared to mount this piece onto. I've got the little piece of 1-inch channel that's going to bolt onto the side of the pedestal that will hold the mount for that end of the swinging arm. But I've got it mounted in there now. I've already got 2 holes mounted, marked off and punched in. So I'm just going to set this up by eye, which is punch marks is plenty fine for that. Okay, now I'm going to put the end mill in, put a ball end mill in there, ball end mill, and mill out a groove in between these 2 holes. The purpose of that groove is so that this will have something to set down into and keep it perpendicular, keep it from twisting. If I got that little slot down in there and set that in and weld that into place, and then just simply be sure that this is plumb when I screw it to the pedestal. I've got everything centered up, of course, on here now, and got the 1/2-inch ball end mill in there. Okay, that didn't quite go through, but that is plenty deep enough to give a track for the pivot to mount in, or for the base to mount in. Again, all I was looking for there was just somewhere for that to set down in so I could clamp it and keep it from twisting before I weld it up. All right, I've got the two pieces of the 1-inch channel that's going to make our arm itself. I carried them out and tack welded them together, top and bottom side in 3 places, and got it mounted into mill vise now and got it centered on the y-axis. We're going to put one of these pivot pieces we made right here, again with the 3/8 inch hole in there, blind hole. We're going to put one of these in each end. One with the hole turned up, one with the hole turned down. I've got a 1-inch end mill in here now. I've got the ends cleaned up already. I've got a 1-inch end mill in there. And I'm just going to barely take a very small cuts at the time until we've got a channel, if you will, or a groove cut in here that matches this 1-inch stock right here. So let's see how this goes. All right, let's see how our piece fits in there now. I've left just a little bit on each side over here. Not sure if you can see that in the video, but I've left enough in there to leave me a V that I can get a weld joint in on each side. So I'm going to move the camera around to the other end and I'm going to move the mill around to the other end and do the same thing over here on this end. I won't try to video that part. As I said over there at the mill, I got our 2 pieces of channel tack welded together and ground back down on both sides. And I just milled out this groove at the end down here, one at each end. And I've got the 2 pivot pieces mounted in there now. One with the hole up, one with the hole down. So I'm going to carry this out to the welder, weld up that little crack. As you can see, I left a little valley in there. But I'll get that welded up. While I was welding up the 2 pieces of channel, I also welded this piece on. This is the piece that will bolt against the pedestal itself under the vise, and then the arm will pivot on this. So I'm not going to try to carry the camera out there there's not much you can see other than a bright light when I'm welding, but I'll get this welded up and then we'll come back in and start working on the table portion. Well, thank goodness I don't have to wait for Santa Claus to bring me a grinder. I've already got one. Right now, what we're going to work on, this is the pivot piece that will mount on the end of the arm, that will connect to one of the pieces we welded onto the end of the arm. The table will be bolted down to it. This is the tool tray or table that I'll be using. It's 8-inch square by 1/2 inch thick piece of aluminum stock. But I'm going to mount it with 4 1/4 holes off the center off of this. So I've got the center located on this piece. And I'm going to go I've got the DRO zeroed out. I'm going to go 550 thousandths in each direction to drill and tap that hole. These holes in this piece, of course, will be drilled and tapped. I'm not concerned about the depth. These are going to be blind holes again. Now we'll go 550 thousandths on the y-axis. All right, I think those are going to be deep enough for the socket head cap screws that I'm using, but if not, I can manually run the bottom tap in there. That was a tapered tap. But I think that'll be sufficient for now. All right, I'm going to get set up to drill the holes in the tray itself. I will deburr that just a little bit. All right, I'm going to get set up now to drill the 4 matching holes in the tool tray itself. All right, now that we've got the 4 holes drilled and tapped in our pivoting piece, I'm using the pallet that I made just in a recent video. Matter of fact, it may be the one just before this video. But in any case, I've only got 4 holes to drill. It's not worth taking the vise off for that. So what I've done is mounted it in the vise, used a little jack screw right here. I zeroed out my angle cube with it setting on the vise. And now I'll zero out, or now I will level this piece. All right, so now that should be perpendicular to the work. So what I'm going to do is mount this up here with some 1, 2, 3 blocks underneath it, just to so that I don't drill into my pallet. All right, I have the mini pallet secured in the vise good now. I've got our work tray, work table secured on it now, and as per a recent video by Keith Rucker, he offered a good piece of advice that when you're clamping something down like this, to not use 4 points, to use 3 points. So I've got one over here on this side and 2 toe clamps over here on this side. I've used a pointer. I simply drew diagonally across there to find the center of this piece and have my pointer in there now and zeroed out the DRO. So what we're going to do is drill a clearance hole for the 1/4-20 socket head cap screws. And of course, just like we did on this, we want this plate to match this piece. So we're going to go 550 thousandths in each direction from center. Be using 1/4-20 socket head cap screws, and I'm not sure how it is with metric bolts, screws, and so forth, but with imperial socket heads, the depth of the head to be countersunk is the same as the diameter of the bolt. So in this case, if it's 1/4 inch, I need to go down 1/4 inch to countersink it. So I'm going to zero out the DRO. All right, before we get ready to paint this or put it all together, I'm going to put railings on 3 sides of this work tray. So that's the next part we'll do, is work on the railings. Okay, so the 4 holes drilled counterbored in the tool tray itself, the pivot piece drilled and tapped, and again, this will sit on the end of the arm and be able to rotate. So now we'll start working on some railings for 3 sides of this to keep our punches, chisels, or whatever from rolling off. I've got the work tray or table over here in the Wilton Vise, and got a piece of 1/4 inch stock, 1/4 inch flat bar by 1 inch wide. I've got it clamped down on there. What I've done is over on the sander is just put a little radius, 1/4 inch radius on one side on there. And the way I'm going to attach this railings on there, instead of drilling and tapping a bunch of holes, I'm going to use these little spring pins. So I'm going to drill 1/8 hole and then insert a little spring pin in there. All right, I'll turn this over, do the same thing to the other side, and then cut one for the back and do the same thing for the back. There'll be a 3-sided railing on here. Okay, I've got the tool tray, railings on it now, 3 sides. As you can see, I've got a radius on there. I've actually eased these front corner edges up here just a little bit, and also the back ones, rounded that off, just to keep from having any sharp corners. I'll get this degreased and painted in a minute, but I'm going to drill one more hole, drill and counterbore one more hole down here in the front of it. And I'm going to use this piece of 3/8 by 3 inch stock, and I'm going to carry this over to the belt grinder and put a radius on there. And then I'm going to fabricate something off the front right here that could swing in and out, that'll have a hole in it to hang the hammer in. This piece that I'm going to mount on the front of the tray to hang the hammer in is kind of an afterthought, so I'm making it up as I go, but I've got it over here. Like I say, it's a piece of 3/8 inch thick, 3 inch wide flat bar. I've put a radius on the end of it over on the belt grinder, and now I'm going to bore out a hole. I'm going to drill, of course, first 1 inch hole, and then I'm going to bore out a 1.65 hole, 1.7, somewhere in that range, that the hammer handle will go through. And then the back portion of this, of how it attaches to, well, it attaches with a 1/4 20 bolt, but much of it I leave for the swivel. I'm just kind of making this piece up as I go. Like I say, it's an afterthought, but I'm going to drill and bore this the handle hole out now. All right, I'm going to get the boring bar in there and start boring. I'll bring it back when we get close to our dimension. I believe this will probably be the last pass with the boring head, if not next to the last one. Then we'll take a look at what we've got. So here's what we have. I'll deburr that, of course. But I'm going to rig some way or form this in such a manner that it will go under the front of that table and will actually swing under it out of the way when it's not in use. But it'll be just to hang the hammer on as I'm working over there. So I'm going to give that a little bit of thought after I deburr it, and then we'll look at the next step of how I'm going to cut this end of it. Okay, here's what I come up with for the something to hang the hammer in. This is the hole, of course, we bored out over there on the mill a minute ago. I've got that set under here. Got it with a 1/4 20 bolt, socket head cap screw, just like these will be. But it's where it can rotate out of the way So I'm going to get these pieces degreased and painted, and while the paint's drying, I'll probably go ahead and off camera and drill the holes to put the mount on the pedestal itself. Of course, before I do that, I'm going to put all the pieces together, measure what the height needs to be, so that this comes out the same height as the base of the vise. All right, I think all the pieces have had time to dry now. I've got everything painted. This is the piece that we put in the mill and used a ball-end mill and put us a little slot in there so that this pivot piece would sit in there while it was being welded. This has been welded up, cleaned up. So I've got some 1/4 holes drilled and tapped in the pedestal itself. And of course, this being a piece of channel here, it will find its vertical position or its position in line with the round column. All right, now we'll take one of the pieces of drill rod. Again, that's a good fit in there. Let all the air escape. This was the two pieces of the channel that we put face to face and tack welded up, top and bottom. Welded in the pivot pieces in these. So we'll again put that in there. There's our swinging action. All right, we have another plate or another pin. Let all the air out. Then this is the pivot piece for the tray itself. I believe I left the tray on the other table. So we have some 1/4 screws. Then we have the piece, the hanger we made for the hammer handles. And I'm going to put a little washer in there to give it some space in between, and putting a nylock self-locking nut on the bottom. All right. And one more little piece. We'll take a piece of toolbox drawer liner and put in there. Now I'll get the camera repositioned where you can see the pivoting action of it. So here's the tool tray, looking from about the front of the vise now, vise pedestal. You can see it's over here on this side. Got plenty of room for wrenches, punches, chisels, whatever. Got the hammer hanger here. If it's not needed, it can flip around to the underside. And if the work, whatever may be being worked on the vise, is not suitable for the tray to be over here, we can just simply swing it around to the other side. So I think that's going to conclude that project. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it might give you some ideas if you've got a similar situation for a tool tray on a vise pedestal or any type of pedestal. But take care, and we'll see you on the next video.